Hello.
Hey, Lori. Here we go.
Here we go. Well,
Finally.
you and I have talked over the last few months and realized that we probably first met almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, at least 20
At
years
least
ago.
20 years ago, and then had a chance to work together during your installation of TAP
Oh, right.
at the
Yes.
Oakland Museum a couple
Yeah.
of years ago. But it has been one of the joys, one of my few joys during the pandemic, to be able to spend some time with you through this program, Voices in Contemporary Art, VoCA Talks, that has brought us together to have some conversation, and their partnership with the Joan Mitchell Foundation, which we'll talk about your work through that initiative as well. But I, have loved your work for decades. And so for me, it's a real treat to just be able to have you be able to share your story a little bit and what you're thinking about and where you are at this moment in your career. And I think of you in so many ways. You have so many layers that we've explored, but you are also, I think, such a product of the Bay Area and this the time that you were raised in the Bay Area and in Berkeley. And I wondered if we could just start with a little bit about your background and a little bit about your upbringing and your history, because it seems like it's just been a huge influence on your work.
Well, I grew up in South Berkeley. South Berkeley is below Martin Luther King, and some people consider it below Shattuck Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time when my parents bought property in Berkeley, you could not buy property above Shattuck Avenue. So, or Martin Luther King. The area that they bought property was African Americans, the Japanese, the Chinese, and the Mexicans all lived below Shattuck Avenue. So we lived on Ellis Street in Berkeley, which was 2 doors from a congregational church where I took my first arts and crafts classes and also ballet classes. So I could walk next door, starting at age, I think I was 3. Both parents were union activists. My mother and my oldest sister, Louise, they were in the Painters Union in San Francisco and during World War II. So they moved from Texas to California in 41 or 42.
So the Great Migration.
The part of the Great Migration that Isabel Wilkerson talks about.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, the second phase of the Great Migration. And they moved in the mid-40s.
Mm-hmm.
And within 2 months, they had sent for my 9 brothers and sisters, my grandmother, and a cousin.
From Texas, right?
From Texas, from Galveston. Yeah. And then I was born 3 years later.
You were born in San Francisco.
I was born in San Francisco. Wow. So I'm the only one out of 10 that was born in San Francisco.
The rest were all born in Texas.
All born in Galveston.
Wow.
My mother was born in a little town called Van Vleck, Texas, right on the Gulf of Mexico. My father was born in Tyler.
And your folks your mom had an antique store.
She had an antique store in Galveston.
And then she opened one in Berkeley. Is that
Well,
right?
we sold furniture out of our house.
Okay. All right.
And she was friends with at that time, Adeline Street was filled, they had numerous antique shops.
Right.
And so she was friends with most of the dealers, and they would come to our house to look for parts of furniture, or if she had something in particular that they wanted, she had it. And we always went to the auction to buy antiques.
Right. Do you think that shaped how your interest in material and your interest in objects?
Well, my mother refinished the furniture, and my father would do the repairs.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I always had things available.
Yeah.
And we would be sitting at the kitchen table, and sometimes my mom would put things together. Or I would see my father whittling pulls for dressers and things like that.
And you were making art.
Oh,
from the get-go.
Yeah, right? But I didn't know I was making art. I before even, I guess I was by the time I started school, I was enameling because they had a little kiln in the arts, and I probably couldn't do it now because they don't let kids do that.
Yeah.
But I can remember putting some glue and then sprinkling the little powdered glass, and the instructor putting it in the kiln. And it was like magic to me. I was just hooked.
And you were creative from the very beginning. You were making art
From the very beginning.
and dance was really your passion.
Oh, I danced for 25 years.
Yeah.
I started off with ballet. I moved from ballet to classical ballet to modern.
Yeah.
And then from modern to Afro-Haitian. And that's when, because Ruth Beckford,
Right.
who she taught classes next door, and I would go into watch her class, and I would tiptoe up the stairs, and I didn't think she could hear the stairs squeaking, and it had banisters. I mean, I was like a kid, and I can remember peeking through the banisters and thinking that she didn't see me, and then she would say, "Okay, you can go home now." So and then later, it was what intrigued me about Ruth Beckford was that I had never seen anyone like her.
Mm-hmm.
She had a short natural,
Mm-hmm.
or then she had sort of a pixie kind of haircut and a voluptuous body.
Mm-hmm.
And she would glide across the floor with the drums and the flute players. And I thought it was magic.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated from Berkeley High School, my dance teacher said, "Well, where are you going to college?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'll go to Oakland City College where all my friends are going." And she said, "Why don't you apply for a scholarship?" And I said, "I can get a scholarship." Now, I was at Berkeley High. This is the 60s. And I did relatively well in high school. I didn't know that I could have gone to Mills, UC Berkeley, even San Francisco State. The counselor never mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, you can go anywhere you want to go." So I said, "Well, I'm going to take classes from Miss Beckford." When in fact, I could have gone to Berkeley.
Yeah.
Or to Mills, because Mills had a dance program.
Right.
And paid to go to Miss Beckford on my own. But I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the best thing I could have ever done.
How come?
Because that gave me the foundation, part of the foundation and the discipline to be an artist.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned being in Berkeley in the 60s.
Yes.
So I just have to ask a little bit about that moment as you were coming of age. Where did you go to? You went to...
I went to Oakland City College, Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, and that was during the Black nationalist movement. SNCC and CORE were right across the street. There were restaurants. This is before BART. There were Black restaurants all up and down. It was Grove Street at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Joe Ethel's was a restaurant where everyone would hang out. So she had food and a pool table, and Huey Newton was, and we're standing around talking about Black nationalism.
And that must have been amazing to see.
Well,
I mean,
it was
so brilliant.
It was just the way it was then.
You didn't know, like this is Huey Newton, the founder of the Black
but he
Panther
was
Party.
brilliant.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. And one of the things that I think that I mean, they brought the free breakfast.
Right.
They brought that to the forefront of this country.
That's right.
That was the beginning of it. That was one of the great things that they did. The other thing about that time was Bobby Hutcherson, who was a jazz vibist, he was playing vibes on the lawn one day, all by himself, just playing, and I just stood there and listened. So for me, that was just as much an education during that period as now.
Yeah. And that was the moment you were coming of age, right?
I was 18.
Yeah. So tell about the moment when So you thought you would be a dancer?
I thought I was going to be a dancer because I danced all the way. I started at age 3 and all the way until my kids were maybe 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But in between that, I fell through a glass door.
Right.
Yeah. And almost lost my leg.
Right. I mean, you were really, really seriously injured.
Very serious. A piece of glass about this long and a 1/4 inch thick was embedded in my leg.
So that was.
And when I went
devastating.
through,
Right.
the thing about it, when I went through the glass door, the first thing that hit me was, I can't dance.
You knew it.
I
in the
knew
moment.
it. Because if I wasn't going to be really good,
Right. Right. It
then why
wasn't-
do it?
Right.
Yeah.
So did you, as you were recovering and as you were trying to think about what's next, did you think, hey, I'll be a visual artist?
No,
How did
I
that
didn't
happen?
think. I didn't think that way because I always made art.
Right.
I always made art and I designed clothes. I
also-
started designing clothes probably in junior high
Yeah.
because we had to make our clothes.
Right. Yeah. Well, with 10 kids, I guess you
Yes.
have to,
Yeah.
be creative.
And it was a time when you did things like that.
Right. Yeah. So you grew up sewing and you
Oh,
were,
I grew up doing that.
So tell about the moment where you thought, okay, maybe I can pursue.
Well, I
art.
had went 2 years to Alameda College and got, the AA and pattern making and design.
Mm.
And I was walking down the street on Bonita. I don't even know. And I had my 2 kids, my twins.
Mhm, mhm.
And we walked into Fiberworks, Center for the Textile Art. I didn't know it was Fiberworks at the time.
Mhm.
And there was a woman named Maria Vella. And I ended up talking with her about what is this place? And she said, oh, it's a textile art school. And we had this long conversation. She says, I think I have a job for you, out of the clear blue. And I said, okay. So I started working in the late 70s at Fiberworks, and it had only been in existence for maybe 5 years, maybe a little bit less.
Mhm.
And at that time, it was associated with Lone Mountain.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
So
I
what were
started.
you doing? What was your work? Were you teaching?
It was.
or-
I think it may have been a CETA job.
Oh, right. See that?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I edited a book on textiles. And
That's
then I
interesting.
started a program for kids because I had worked myself out of a job. And so
Yeah.
I started teaching kids.
And you've done teaching almost all your career, right?
Well, even if I had never done it, why not? So I made up all these classes.
Tell
And-
about like a few of the you mean you taught youth classes?
I
and you
started
taught-
first teaching at Casadera Art and Music Camp when I was 16 because I went to a music camp and I don't play an instrument. So I went into the kitchen and I started making tempera paint.
Ah,
And I had a few students and I just started teaching class while everyone else played music. And then back to Fiberworks.
Yeah.
And they had a program, a graduate program. And Maria said, well, why don't you apply and get a graduate degree? I didn't have a BA. But by that point, I had been showing work.
uh-huh. What kind of work was this at that stage? Was it mostly fiber?
Collage? No,
Uh-huh.
I dyed fabric
Uh-huh.
to make clothing out of, but I never really did weaving and all of those kinds of things, even though I studied it.
Yeah. So you were doing your early collage.
Early collages, stitch pieces of paper
Oh, wow.
that my stitched, mostly abstract pieces. But that came a little bit later.
Uh-huh.
'Cause that was in the 80s when I was in graduate school. These were mostly paper collages that I
At
did
that
at that.
early stage.
Yes.
And so you pursued your graduate degree. Yeah.
I got in
And this was JFK, is that right?
JFK.
Yeah.
First it was Lone Mountain. Then
Okay.
it went to JFK because Lone Mountain went out of business.
I see. Right.
Yeah.
So it was a fine arts degree.
MFA.
MFA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I
So
never
when
looked
did
back.
so I mean, the thing that's extraordinary about your work is all of the different media, all of the different materials. I mean, you've worked with collage, you've worked with photography, you've worked with sculpture. Were you always interested in doing and working with a lot of different material, and you just get bored easily?
I think education is important, but also, you have to learn to play the game. And if you listen, you know what's expected and you know what they want. I get bored super easily. Super easily. So I did what they expected, and every now and then I would do something different. Because in some ways, I mean, we were the same age. I was the same age as some of my instructors, and maybe even
right, because
older.
Because you had worked for a while before you went on to grad school. So you were doing this and raising 2 little kids, and pretty much on your own. Right?
Yeah, I was on my own.
Yeah.
And then I went from there to Pro Arts.
Right.
And Pro Arts was on Webster Street.
Right. Which is the program that shows local artists and open studios.
But I want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because while I was at Fiberworks, I mean, I was the only Black person around. And I'm thinking, you guys don't know any Black people in the whole United States?
Yeah.
Not one. And so I decided to curate a show with a woman named Donna Larson called
because
Local
there
Color.
was just a dearth of Black artists in the Bay Area.
Oh, there were tons because
there were a lot, but weren't
exactly. They had the rainbow sign. Marianne Poller, I think, yes, she started the rainbow sign. So she brought Romare Bearden there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
So that was the one place that was showing any Black artists.
Yes. Oh, one other thing. Prior to me going to Fiberworks, I met Susan Suttle in the cities. Susan Suttle was Terry Denton Foss's daughter. She had just come to Berkeley. And through Susan, I met Raymond Saunders.
Right.
Yeah.
Another great Black artist, Bay Area.
That's it.
Yeah.
Really great. And so we became friends.
Yeah.
So I was always amongst artists. I met Russell T. Gordon, who taught at Concordia College in Montreal through Raymond. And then I met Jacob Lawrence during that time and Gwen Lawrence during that time. Romare Bearden was painting the mural at Berkeley.
So you were beginning to see at this stage, maybe there's a possibility I can do this. I can pursue.
I still know, but I was making art, but I didn't think I could make a living making art.
Right.
But I went ahead, and after getting my degree in pattern making and design, I went ahead and started graduate school. Still, we're making art, still working and working,
kids, and
working.
Yeah.
And once I finished, and during that same period, I got a call to come on board at Pro Arts. They had the East Oakland Youth Development Center was built by Clorox.
Right.
And they had a complete art room with a dark room, a kiln, painting studio, everything. So she wanted me to run that program based on what I had done at Fiberworks.
I see.
So I ran a program there for 8 years, and I hired David Bradford, the painter, Louis Watts, the photographer. Louis Watts came later. I had another guy.
And these were programs for neighborhood kids?
Neighborhood kids.
So full circle from where
it ended up serving over 300 kids at that time.
And when was this? What period of time was this?
In the 80s. And we got grants from the California Arts Council.
Yeah.
And then I get a call from the Arts Council, and Juan Carrillo calls me, who was deputy director.
I remember Juan Carrillo.
Yeah, and he said, I want you to work here. So by that time, I was like in debt. So how do I get out of debt?
Right.
Go work for the California Arts Council. So I commuted
to Sacramento.
25 and a half hours a week over an 8-hour day.
Oh my gosh.
And I did it for 18 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's about all you could take.
That's
if I
all.
can
Well, I got out of debt and I bought a car. That's what I wanted to do. And I learned the Arts Council. But while I was at the Arts Council, Ann Chamberlain,
Oh,
Ann Chamberlain called me and said, I want you to take my job. I didn't even know Ann.
this is at the
At the Exploratorium. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wanted me to take her job at the Exploratorium. And I remember getting interviewed.
Was it like an artist in residency program? Is that what
Yeah,
it was?
well, it was in the Institute for Inquiry,
Oh, that's okay.
where I
Yeah.
helped to integrate art and science. And I'm thinking, I don't know anything about science, but I'll go.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I'm working at the Exploratorium, which was another great decision to make.
I mean, that was a time when the Exploratorium, I mean, it is a
Oh.
great institution, but there
Ned
was
Kahn
so
was
much-
there.
Yeah.
Christina Orth, who had worked at the Arts Council, was
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
It was just, it was
Such
a
a
fabulous place to
hotbed of
work.
creativity and
Oh.
interesting people and yeah.
And that's where I realized that artists and physicists and scientists were very similar in that they took a question that led to another question. It was on this path of inquiry. You could go one way or you could go the other way. But what I enjoyed about working at the Exploratorium, not just that it opened up my eyes to light and color,
Mhm.
to structure and scale,
Mhm. Mhm.
but the what if.
Did your work change over that period of time, and were you trying new things and
Well,
exploring new
I don't
issues?
know if I hope that I'm growing as an artist, and I still hope that I am, but it helped to inform what I was doing in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
And still today, I refer back to the Exploratorium in my pursuit of art making.
Yeah. So you were in all of these roles, and throughout your career, you were doing a lot of teaching, but you
I did.
never got tenure anywhere.
Oh, I mean, look at my color.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still black and in America.
Yeah.
I did the adjunct shuffle.
Yeah.
From Stanford to California College of Arts and Crafts to teaching a year in a middle school, to going back to the Art Institute, sitting on the Art Institute board for 9 years, 11 years, teaching, but still not good enough to teach in that institution. But where's the Art Institute now?
Yeah.
It's in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I find this shocking because you are one of the leading artists of your generation in the Bay Area. That it never happened for you to have that kind of security.
No, but yeah, and then I even had one artist said, "Well, you have a full-time assistant, don't you? What's wrong with you?" Well, yeah, I have a full-time assistant. I have my daughter, Anissa, and I have my grandsons, Miles and Xavier. They help me.
Right.
But
Right.
no, This is the real world.
Yeah.
It's the real world. No.
So at
So
some
when
point you really said enough of this.
And
right?
when I lost my job at the last job at the Art Institute, I said, this is it. And that was maybe mid-2000. I said, I'm not going back. That is it.
Yeah.
I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to my art making. And I never looked back. Of course, I've gone back to critique a class or do something like that.
Right.
But they got to pay me
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Really pay me.
Yeah.
So, no, it didn't work. That's why institutions are so white. The art schools are white.
Yeah.
All the faculty.
Yeah.
And women, a few women.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
No. it's crazy.
It is crazy.
And this is the Bay Area.
Right.
That's supposed to be so liberal.
Right.
No.
Right. No.
I was the only African American in my graduating class.
So that shift when you decided to really dedicate yourself
Mm-hmm.
to your art making was when you started to pursue some major public art commissions. Is that right? Is that when were you doing that before? Because I think of your work now so much in the public realm as in the
I do. I guess that's the most visible. But actually, TAP, Investigation of Memory, the one that was
Yeah.
at the Oakland Museum, that's in Jansen's History of Art.
Yeah.
And Jansen himself called me, and I'm thinking, well, why do you want that piece? I have these other pieces. I can remember arguing with him. And then when I got off the phone, and I said, oh, that was Jansen's.
It's like Webster calling you about a word, right?
Exactly. Let him have. What's the big deal?
Well, I'm pretty excited at that. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
and
great.
then I remember sending him a 4x5 transparency of the work.
Well, now I have to go find that book.
Yeah,
That's great.
I have it on my bookshelf in there. I
Yeah.
made 2 editions of Jansen's, and then I was out.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
still, you were there.
It was me, maybe Meadow Warwick, Jacob Lawrence, Romare Bearden. Who else was in there? Was Carrie Mae in one of them? Me and Ann Hamilton are on the same page.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yes, and
That's
I know
pretty
Ann
good.
Hamilton,
Yeah.
so that was perfect.
Yeah. So when did the Public Art Commission work start?
Susan Pontius was running Inner Arts of Marin, and I did an installation, but it wasn't a permanent. It was a temporary piece in the post office, which also was a community center in Mill Valley. So I did the Gospel in the Storefront Church, where I created a storefront church in the post office, and I had the Marin Choir come and sing in the post office. But then I got Bishop Norman Williams, who was with the Church of John Coltrane, to come perform at that. And that
You've
was
done that a few times. Had a performance at one of your installations.
yeah.
is
The
that-
other one was New York,
So you just did.
underneath the Brooklyn Bridge.
Okay.
That
Okay.
not
that, yeah.
that one too.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
recent one. Well,
Yeah.
the first one was underneath the Brooklyn Bridge, where I had covered the whole floor underneath with, I think it was either 5 or 10 tons of white marble, and then I put wax feet, covered the whole floor with, I think, 500 pairs of wax feet, and I lit it low so that the feet would glow.
That sounds amazing.
And then I had a choir from Harlem come in and perform at that one. And you could actually walk through that installation.
Yeah. Well,
And then,
when you describe your pieces, you were just talking about TAP, which is a gorgeous
I love that piece.
And you talked about that piece, that it came to you in a dream.
It was the only piece that actually came to me in a dream, and it came out the way it was in my dream.
Yeah. These pieces, they're so rich with history. The history of that evoked in that piece, the materials, it's just all aspects of your work come together there. It feels like for me in that piece.
Well, yeah, we have so much stuff around until why not use what we have to make work?
Well, and that's what you've done, right? I think
Exactly.
about bottles,
Oh, yes.
keys.
Yes.
What are some of mirrors?
Yes.
Those are some of the
Lunch
keys.
boxes, whatever.
Chairs.
Chairs, the rolling pin on the lips on the rolling pin.
Yeah.
What am I
the
working
concept,
on?
I think of the bottle houses, and the whole concept of home
Right.
is such an important theme in your work.
Mm-hmm.
And then also these black spaces. You were just
Right.
talking about the, with TAP, it was the
Well,
Old California Hotel.
exactly.
Right? That chair came
That's
from.
yes. John Abdul-Jami, who is in your collection.
Yeah.
He had a shoeshine stand on his front porch, and I went over there to take a friend, Eddie Chambers, who's a curator from the UK, had come to town, and I wanted him to meet John Abdul-Jami.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a funny guy. And the shoeshine stand was on his front porch. And I noticed it then, but I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
And then when I had this dream, I went back to him and I said, can I buy the shoe shine stand? And he said, yes, from the California Hotel.
That's
The
right.
California Hotel is on 38th and San Pablo. I'm now on
Six
Yeah.
blocks from here.
6 blocks from
Yeah.
here. Now yeah. So I bought the shoe shine stand from him. And then there was a shoe repair shop on Shattuck, a woman-run shoe repair shop. That's where I bought all the shoe taps.
I mean, it's just, it's
Boxes and boxes. I can't
Yeah.
remember how many thousands.
which, called forth your history as a dancer.
Yes.
Right.
But I don't think I was thinking so much of it as a dancer then.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how do I create a story with these objects? Because
Yeah.
a tap is a tap. It's an inanimate object, as Oliver Jackson says.
Right. Right.
Paintings don't talk. This
Yeah.
cup does not talk.
Yeah.
This book, yes, there are pages, but they don't care.
Yeah.
How do you create something out of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, so many thoughts coming to mind. I mean, your works convey these deep and poignant stories, but some of your work is just really funny too.
Well, I hope so. I mean,
Yeah,
life
talk
is
about humor
serious.
and irony in some of your work.
Oh, well, I have a piece that has a hat block on it
Yeah,
and a shoe in the
and then where the
where the mouth should be, a stiletto shoe,
right.
and then it's on a hoe. So it's hooked with a hoe. Because it wouldn't be a hook without a hoe.
No, it wouldn't.
No. It takes two.
Right.
But most of the time you hear about the hoe.
Right.
You never hear about the hook.
I think I have seen a picture of that
Yeah.
work. I mean, you were just mentioning a painting can't talk. And I know, I mean, we've talked about your history and coming up during the civil rights movement, and we are in another one of these moments of national reckoning around race. And I imagine that a lot of the work that you get called to do these days, there's a focus on social justice.
I am so sick of doing that because you know why I'm sick of it? I mean, yes, I believe in social justice. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's in my DNA.
Right, you've lived it.
But I am not a social worker. Let's get some of these social workers who need jobs to partner maybe with artists.
Right.
And first is multiculturalism, and then it's diversity in the arts, people in the color. They keep changing the name. I am so sick of it.
Well, it's the life you've had to lead. You don't
Yes,
need to
in
prove
order
that.
to survive
Right.
as an artist.
Right.
But I am not a psychologist. I'm not a social worker. I'm not trained as that.
Right.
And it's not to say that I don't care, because of course I care.
Well, and
I'm
your
a
work
black
embodies it.
Exactly.
embodies it,
And I'm a
right?
black woman in America. Yeah, I care. But hire some of these other people. Their specialty. Can I go ask my dentist, would you, you have to go work with artists in order to get paid.
Right.
You have to teach this art class.
Right.
It never happens.
Yeah.
Only with the arts
Yeah.
does it happen.
Do you have to prove your utility?
I have to prove myself.
Yeah.
Not only do I have to be an artist and figure out what it takes to be an artist, but now I got to be a psychologist, a social worker, a teacher.
An activist.
Yes, exactly, to survive. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
And museums, I think, are being forced to look that way too.
Well, I mean, at this stage of your career, I mean, I'm thinking about how you described TAP and that you fully envision this. And you've described another piece, which I think is also is not yet realized, but you hope to realize
my
it.
piece about time and space,
Time and space.
because they're one. Without time, there's no space. And without space, there's no time.
Yeah.
But there's always movement.
Describe
that
what
goes
you
for
envision
all of
that
it.
piece. Because
So-
you told the first time we had a conversation, or not the first time, but when we began talking about this, that you described that piece. And it was just, gave me chills just to picture it.
The curator, Lizetta LaFall Collins, approached me when I was at the Exploratorium to submit a proposal for the Venice Biennale. Now, I hope that I would get it, but Black wasn't quite as in as it is now.
Especially at the Venice Biennale.
Yeah, at the Venice Biennale. Yeah. So I submitted this piece on time and space, and this has been probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And there are 4 rooms. The first room you walk into, there's this large pile, 6 feet in diameter, maybe 5 feet high or 4 feet high, of oyster shells. Mm. And the room has a wall that's out of smoke-colored glass with some Shakespearean-like quote on the glass. It is etched into the glass. And it's slightly grayish in the room. But you hear this sound. The next room has, I was originally going to have an hourglass, right, but now I'm working on that now, a large funnel that is about 6 to 8 feet in diameter, that it's clear and it hangs from the ceiling, and the spout is longer, a longer spout with a pile of black sand. So the spout is embedded in the black sand as if it's coming through. And so you hear the swoosh, and then you hear a little bit of sound of sand. So each sound room builds on the other. On the third room, you have the projection of time, like a clock, but it's still on the ground, the shadow of a clock. And you can see from one room to the other. And then the last room, I have the film that I shot when I was 14. Right. 13 or 14, maybe it was 14. I hadn't gone to junior high. And it's on each side of the room. And then I recorded Oliver Jackson and Dewey Crumpler talking about time and space. And they're both incredibly brilliant and great orators. So I have them talking, and you hear all the sounds going on top of one another, and the words are coming up on this film that I shot. So that's what I'm working on.
You just can picture this.
I see it.
And you've seen it in your head?
I've seen it in my head for that long. And in a way, I'm happy I didn't do it for the Venice Biennale, because now I worked through it. Right. I know what it's going to be like. Right. I don't have to do the hourglass, which I was going to do a 6 or 8 foot hourglass. The funnel. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if when we've talked about this piece, it also feels like a metaphor, because you have said, what would it be like to have the time and space to just make art?
That's it.
I mean, all your career, you've had to piece this together, whether it's with teaching or California Arts Council jobs or Exploratorium, or as great as those opportunities were in some ways.
Well, that's where.
But what does that mean to you?
Well, that's
to be able to have the time and space.
Oh goodness! I mean, if I just think what I do without that, but if I had the time, my last big body of 2-dimensional work, I did it in 2 sessions at Sharks Inc. in Colorado. The whole Casanova series, and I did 40-some pieces.
Because you had that dedicated time and space?
10-week, I think. Once I went for 10 days, and the next time maybe 8 days. I had 40-some pieces.
And the public art work, as you said,
I do that all along.
You've been doing it, but it's also, that's the business of art that takes so much of your time.
Right. But art is a business.
Yeah.
I'm just fortunate that it's my passion. It's a business.
Yeah. But if you had the chance to not have to do so much of the business and really focus on the art.
Yeah. I have 2 project managers now for my public art, and that helps So much.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
I mean, the installation I just did in New York, the house that will not pass for any color than its own.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to get to New York to be able to see it.
Well, I can't wait to I had to do that remotely.
Yeah.
Even my team who I had here to fly back there could not go. So Abby Ehrlich, who is with Battery Park City Authority, she helped to oversee that. And then my Tim Yarish, who works with me on my large houses, he was able to work on the project. Yeah.
Well, it is a moment, these crazy times.
It is a crazy time.
It's given us a chance to talk over these last few months and have this conversation. And I guess, circling back to the Joan Mitchell
Right.
program, Creating a Living Legacy.
Yes. It's interesting. When I got I'm always applying for things. A little less now than I was maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But this is 20 years now, almost 20, that I got the Joan Mitchell. Was it 2007? Anyway, I had applied, and you apply, and I got to the point where you just forget about it. And the director called me and said, I had to hang up the phone. You're getting $25,000. I was like, ooh, wait. It's like, oh boy, this is a relief.
Yeah.
I said, can I just hang up the phone and call you back later?
I just need a moment.
I just need a moment. And I remember just busting into tears because I needed the money so bad.
Wow.
Yeah, that saved me. And later they called me and they had this program to help you. They sent me a form and saying, how are your files? And I didn't complete it. My files were a hot mess.
Right. And you don't really want to put that on a form,
Exactly.
right?
My forms are a hot mess. Right. And then Gary Connect, Squeak Conmore's husband, called me, said, fill out the forms.
Yeah, you'll get some help here.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't realize that. And so I was able to hire an assistant and set up an office to get my archives organized.
Yeah.
All of these have been organized down from, some of my early work.
Yep.
This is another project I did, but I don't know if you can see it. I went around and talked to the homeless people during the time that I was in. Because I didn't have access to any of my equipment, I had only my iPhone and my computer. So I went and took photographs and paid each of them and got their story and documented them and then manipulated the images on my phone. And so they're like this.
So I love this space, but you haven't been here that long.
No,
right?
I haven't. I've been working on this space for the last 6 months. And all of this is a result of me being priced out of South Berkeley.
Yeah, the gentrification. That's
Gentrification.
in Berkeley and Oakland is
Yeah.
real. Yeah, because you were in your Berkeley studio for
Almost
years.
20 years, almost 20 years. And my landlord said, I'm gonna double your rent. And so I couldn't afford $5,000 a month rent. That's $60,000 a year.
Well, I remember. I mean, that was written about in the Chronicle because it was your plight was like the plight of artists.
Oh yeah, it was my neighborhood where I thought I would live and die in the People's Republic of Berkeley, but I drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And I probably should not have.
Well, but now you're.
But now I have a great space in Sweet
space.
West Oakland, as Brown Sugar Cafe has, and it's working.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
this is a gorgeous space, and you have a lot of room to work.
Yeah.
So
This is a piece I started before I left Berkeley, and I had been collecting these safe deposit boxes, and I decided to make a train out of it. Paul Koss called and said the train, the model train company has a sale. So I drove down to Palo Alto.
So he would of course know. Well,
Yes.
of course Mildred Howard would want some of these
Yes,
trains, right?
exactly. So I went down and I got all the components. I still have to get a few more, maybe twice this amount of track because I really wanted to go along the peripheral of a room, just a little above eye level. And I want a plexiglass mount on the wall so you see the traps and you see the piece. And my first title of this piece was going to be C-T-R-A-N-E, C Train to Parker Way. So John Coltrane to Parker Way. But now I think I'm going to change it to the Snoop Dogg Express. Because good. I love how Snoop Dogg has transformed himself.
Yeah. So what's the significance of the safety deposit box, including that on the train?
Well, I guess it could be a metaphor for so many things. Not
where
just
you,
for
where you keep your
where you keep your documents, where you keep all of these things, and it fits perfectly
as boxcars.
Right, as boxcars.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll have instead of New York Central, have Snoop Dogg Express, where the New York Central train is, and then on here put C Train to Parker Way. So you bring both the past and the present together.
Will you finish this and then decide where to install it, or do you want to figure out a place where it would be installed?
Well, at one point I thought it would be installed outside of the space with the 4 rooms.
Oh, so part of the time and space piece.
Well,
or related to it.
Related to it, but not a part of it.
Yeah.
But it could also go separately. I'm being represented also by a gallery in Los Angeles called Parrish Hyman. I just had a show that closed there, and they're ready for anything, but I need to hold on to stuff for a minute.
Yeah.
So that I can see what I have and see where I'm going.
Tell us, these are proposals for
public art. My first one, the bottle house that I did at Headlands, and it sold at DeRosa. I did it at the Headlands. I was an artist.
Your first?
Very first.
The bottle house.
And I did it at the Headlands Center for the Arts.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm going to do this. This is a piece that I proposed for the Southeast Community Center. But they, just because you're not selected, it doesn't mean it's not good.
No.
But I'm going to do this one.
I love you.
So I'm going to do that piece. Well, dominoes are played all over the world. They started in China. But then there are references of dominoes in Italy. You go to Cuba, you see them playing dominoes. All over the world they play dominoes. So for me, it was about how culture borrows from one another. Right. Slapping bones on the table. That's what they call that. Right. And I was going to do...
How big were you envisioning these?
I think it was going to be 8 feet. And have them falling. See, like that.
Could they be movable? Because I see them.
No. They would all stay. So I was going to have to work with an engineer. Because see, all of these, that would have to be reinforced underneath like that. And all the rest would probably have something go through them and it spread out.
Well, they're so playful too. And
right.
They're such a part of everybody's childhood too.
This piece was my second big public art. The first really big one was the airport.
Right.
Permanent.
Yeah.
With the saxophones.
Yes.
This one goes over Fillmore at Gary.
Yeah.
And it's the same community where I was born.
Yeah. Right.
And it is the one piece that if they're not going to restore it, I wish that they would take it down. Yeah. It was once so beautiful. This is a piece that I did right after, I began this series right after I was, on top of me losing my studio, the month before I was to move, my studio caught on fire.
Oh, I remember you telling me about that, which was
In my bedroom,
so
from
scary.
Yeah, it was so scary. But fortunately, I had been documenting through emails my landlord saying that the hot water heater in the restaurant next door keeps going off. I was sitting at it was around 11 at night. I was sitting at my computer working, sending emails, and I kept hearing a clicking noise. And I walked around, I went into my bedroom and smoke was billowing through the walls.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I grabbed one thing and it was a painting of my dad and everything else I left. And fortunately, the neighbors came over with the fire extinguisher that I had and helped me get it out. But I was displaced for 3 months staying in a friend's house.
Did you lose a lot of work there?
I got work damaged. I lost clothes and shoes, but no work. And
Wow.
the work that was damaged, I had it restored.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know. I was fortunate. It could have been me. If I had been asleep, it would have been me. So
wow.
during that
So
period,
this gives you a new lease on life,
Right.
Come to
And-
this
right,
place and think
exactly.
about the future.
and so that took me back to this series. I was working on this series and my ongoing investigation on what constitutes home.
Right.
And I brought together these young black and brown kids, or teenagers and young men, and one girl who insisted on coming to talk about issues of today. And I paid each of them. I think we had 3 meetings, and they each got paid for participating in this summit.
I'm just reading this quote here. I'm about making music that is positive and real and talks about what is happening to young people. And it makes me think of what you were just saying about Coltrane and
Right.
Snoop Dogg. Music has been a big part of your life.
Well, it's all
too.
time and space.
It's all time and space.
It's all time and space.
Yeah.
With so many notes, look what you can create.
And didn't you say you had music always playing in your home growing up? And
Always playing. And each one of these have a quote on it, but you have to walk up to them and read it.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is the question mark evidence?
No, I just put that up. The question mark is a part of a series that I did based on a poem by Quincy Troop.
Yeah, you've done punctuation marks.
Yeah, and that's one of the last of that. I have a few more pieces, and I kept that one for myself.
So these are what's the technique here? These are prints.
These are photographs that I just manipulated and printed. And each one is.
So you did these this year.
I just finished. These are just hot. I just finished this series, and I did these 4 first, and I was going to all the ones that I signed all of them, but all the ones that had a number. At the time, I was going to do an edition of 5, but then when I put them all together, I said no. 1. So I have to do a letter of authenticity saying why I did that, and that they all go together.
Would you hope to keep these together? Or
Yes. Yeah. They should go together.
I think so.
Yeah, they should go together.
They're really,
Yeah.
really beautiful.
I like what they say. Like,
I believe in a second chance. People who are given a second chance work harder. I am an American.
yeah, he's from, I think he's from Central America. Yeah.
So these were quotes
Yeah.
of these young
Yeah.
folks.
And then this one, sharing my experience of going through college on a full scholarship with others who aspire to do the same helps me to feel powerful. That was the question. What makes you feel powerful? Yeah. My mind gives me strength. That makes me feel powerful and smart. I can figure things out. social justice for me is having the same opportunity as everyone else, the same opportunity as those who don't look like me and don't have the same dark skin color.
Huh.
Yeah. We had a day in school when we were supposed to talk about social justice. It was cut short by the dean because of a lot of the Black students were speaking about injustice. Isn't that great? Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I know. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Oh, the one, she's great. I've always felt powerful. No one told me otherwise. I'm not afraid to say how I actually feel.
Well,
Isn't that
she
great?
strikes me that,
Yeah,
she was going to join here.
Isn't she great? I know, isn't that great? So they all have great
Their
quotes.
stories.
Yeah. So this is that piece. And I also did a book on that. A book.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. This is
So this is the inside. Here, cut that for me.
So where did you get this box as well from the bigger one? Where did you
No,
get
the
this?
bigger one I had custom made
Okay.
for the here.
Your expert assistant.
Right. Of our life. I mean, I work alongside my mother.
So it just keeps going
It
down
keeps
through the
going.
generations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's okay because I have more paper. Oh, it's upside down. So here, and see, this is how they look without the quote. Those are, yeah.
That is
And some of the
beautiful.
stanzas, and see,
That's
this one.
gorgeous.
this quote. Sometimes I feel as though I am the target, even though I haven't done anything wrong. Sometimes I feel as though I have connection to those who have been killed. I am the same. I know. I mean, these are young kids just starting off their life. Some of them were not even out of high school. And so I have a series of quotes. I think they're 35 pages. Because of my color, I have to represent myself as though I am not a threat to anyone. I don't want others to feel scared of me. I mean, these are kids.
Well, and this work, it came out of
It came out of the Trayvon Martin.
yeah.
And observing things now leads me to think back to slavery. No one is getting hanged, but they are getting shot. I know they're all quotes by young.
I mean, and in this way, your work does have to do with social justice, but it's just because this is the stories coming out of this community.
Yeah.
Right?
Always keep your hands to your side so they can be seen. Say yes, sir, and no, sir. Don't run. And every Black parent I know has said that. So this, I did 5 of these. This is the last one. This one has just been purchased. So
I was just going to say, these
yeah,
will be with private collectors,
Private
and also
collectors.
hopefully institutions would have this as
Well,
well.
now the institution didn't buy it, and I don't have any more left. I have 2. I have 2 artists. I have an artist proof. And this is the last one.
And
And
so
it goes
right now
like this.
you're represented by a gallery in LA
And here. And I could be represented by one in New York. But it's like after a while, none of that becomes as important
right.
as the work itself.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not.
And you don't want to be
chasing.
working just so that you can produce
Show.
for a
No,
show.
I want to work. I want to do my work, look at it, and do some more work. Oh, of course I want to sell.
Right.
Yeah, because it helps me to make work. I need to.
Yeah.
But
You don't want that pressure of having to do it.
no, I want to work just to work.
But you
don't
have a million ideas still,
right, exactly.
No,
Exactly.
no lack of material. This is really beautiful.
Thank you.
For showing me this.
Thank you.
Do you think about what kind of legacy you want to leave, or what kind of legacy?
No, I really don't. I think about what I need to do to keep making a living and to keep making art. I don't think about a legacy or fame or anything. I think about the next project I'm working on.
Yeah, every time we've talked, every
Yeah.
time I've come over or you came over to my house, it was always, here's what I'm working on, you never
That's
stop.
where my interest is.
Yeah.
Not what's after, but what's right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Mildred Howard, this is amazing.
Thank
It's
you,
been
Lori.
such a joy to speak with you and get to know you even better. And whether you know it or not, you have created a legacy.
Oh, thank you.
You
Lori.
have created a legacy, and we will keep it alive in our museum for sure.
Yeah.
And I only wish for you the time and space to make art.
Oh, thank you.